So I want to wrap very briefly about libertarianism, uh, the primer to libertarian thought, libertarian ethics. Now, what are libertarian ethics? What, at the core, defines libertarianism? Just what is liberty? How do we define it? Well, we define liberty as, at its absolute core, the ownership of ourselves. Self-ownership. We own our bodies. We own our minds. We own the fruits of our labor, our property, our possessions. Private property rights. Land ownership. Thought. Now it's hard to say this is the most basic or what have you, but to my mind, there is nothing more just utterly yes, you get it, about libertarianism than the non-aggression principle. Non-aggression principle states that in the civil society, it is immoral to use force to gain something. Civilized societies, we do not rob, rape, murder. I know, shocking, right? But in the civil society, it is immoral, it is unacceptable, it's a violation of the ownership of self to take something from someone by force. Because they're not owning that action, and in that moment, they're not owning themselves. You're owning them by forcing them. So, in other words, so what is force? We have to define what is force. Force. Okay? Force. A notice on your door that says you're going to get evicted. Okay? And most importantly, in this present era that we are living in, of political correctness, force. Duct tape over your mouth. Shut up. Be quiet. Again, those that burrito stand or whatever, burrito store. They applied force to get what they want, which is these evil, evil people to go out of business. And they're evil because they sold a product. So, libertarian ethics. Self-ownership, non-aggression principle. And those are the two most basic, building blocks of libertarian ethics, libertarian thought and philosophy. You own yourself. You own your mind, your body, the fruits of your labor, your property. You can do with it whatever you choose, just as long as you're not violating the non-aggression principle. If you got your property through force, if you kicked someone out of a house or off of a plot of land and chose to live there, you gained that immorally. If you are putting something into your body, which you own, but you obtain that substance, again, through force, not acceptable. And part of getting on the same page with people, which I believe for most people, we can do. We can get on the same page. Part of getting on the same page is boiling it down to the nuts and bolts of things. And when you boil things down, it really does sound very simple, because it is very simple. It's a non-aggression principle and self-ownership. I mean, and I hate to do this because it's the kind of posturing that leftists do. But also, you know what? When people play a game, I like to play the game with them. Again, that devil's advocate thought experiment sort of scene. Play it out with them. Meet them where they're at, as we say in my field of work. But these ideas are quite simple. We teach them to our children. Timmy, we don't take blocks that aren't ours. We don't take blocks that aren't ours. That is not okay. That is bad. If you want Johnny's blocks, you ask. You do not take. Right? It's pretty simple stuff. So I think, and I don't think that's a radical idea. So let's agree that these are sensible and sensical, and they play out pretty damn well on the continuum, once you stretch them out and apply them on a grand scale. Now, nothing applied on a grand scale is perfect. Nothing. Not even gravity, right? The most basic law of the universe, which dictates everything. And yet, when you take it out, I have to give props to Stefan Molyneux on this, by the way. I heard this from him. But gravity, when you take, and I'm sure he got it from someone else. Anyways, when you take gravity and you extend it out, suddenly you get weird anomalies like black holes. And I'm sure if you do the same with libertarian ethics, you'll find the same thing. Because everything that is, particularly things that are devised by man, I'm sure the law of gravity, I'm sure that there are permutations that you could, and I'm sure that it's been done, so that would make black holes not exist as an anomaly in that definition. Anyways, but all things devised by man aren't perfect because man is inherently imperfect, and that is okay. And that's ultimately what statists, what big L leftists, it's funny, they seem to want to deny our differences. But then simultaneously they want to hyper accentuate and divide differences. We see that in races, okay? But then in this notion where we're all the same, this whole thing with man versus woman. Oh no, women should be allowed to be firefighters. And so what do they do in order for that to happen? They lower the physical requirements. Because women don't have the same upper body strength as men. So now we're gambling our 3-year-old in the burning building's life, all for the sake of equality. Don't you feel good about yourself? But I digress. That's all for now. Until next time. Cheers.